Welcome to 20 Metre Restart, Agree to Disagree Rugby League podcast. I'm your host Ra, and on today's show, we talk about the Broncos vs Cowboys game at Suncorp Stadium on Friday night, the Storm vs Tigers game, what an upset, the NRL's new format around Hall of Fame and the Immortal, our picks, and much more. Hoons, Nick, are you ready? Let's get it on. Welcome to 20 Metre Restart, Agree to Disagree Rugby League podcast. I'm your host Ra, alongside my two comrades, Hoons and Nick. What's up, boys?
Good morning, Ra.
Good morning, Ra.
Well, before we get started, the scoreline on Thursday, Sharks lost to the Dragons 16-20. The Roosters beat the Bulldogs 30-12. Broncos, Cowboys 24-20. Warriors against the Titans 20-8. Panthers, a comeback win against the Bunnies 18-14. An upset win by the Tigers 10-8. Seagulls thrashing the Eels 54-0. And the Raiders lost to the Knights 30-28. Here's a question to you, Nick. What team impressed you the most this week?
It'll sound a little biased, but definitely the Broncos. Definitely the Broncos. After receiving a lot of criticism last week, after coming off such a poor performance, and then to play against one of the favourites, the North Queensland Cowboys, and then to come out victorious is absolutely phenomenal. I was super proud of the team there, so they're my pick.
Hoons, what about you?
Hey, Ra. I woke up this morning, the sun is shining, and I thought the sun would shine on me, but it's not. But to get to your question, Ra, the Tigers, actually the team that impressed me the most. After watching that game on Saturday night, you can't be more than impressed with the West Tigers and how they've pulled through in the last 2 weeks. It was phenomenal.
Phenomenal they were. Now, on to Broncos versus Cowboys game at Suncorp Stadium. 4 tries to 3 to the Broncos. 24-20. It was an incredible game. The attendance was once again over 45,000 like always. But what can you say about this derby? It's just, it's always close and always excellent to watch. Here's my question to you, Hoons. What were your thoughts on the game?
Ra, I definitely underestimated the Broncos for last Friday night's game. I was there, and I was really impressed with the Broncos. Winning 24-20 against my beloved Cowboys. It's crazy. It's just crazy to think that. And you know what, Nick, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I doubted your team and your players and your coach. I think we're both underestimating Wayne Bennett, but he definitely came up with the goods and got his team prepped. But in saying that, first of all, I just want to get this out the way. The Cowboys, sorry, the Broncos, guys, the Broncos cheated. And here's why, Nick, is that Mr. Goalpost had no right to stop Scott Walton in the last minute and a half of the bloody game for them to win. And we all knew that if Scott Walton scores that try, it's game over, Cowboys win. So I don't know how much they paid Mr. Goalpost to do what he did, have to shoulder charge Scott Bolton to force an error. But yeah, no, on a serious note anyway, is that, the Cowboys made too many schoolboy errors, Ra, Nick, as we all seen on Friday night. Now, that leads me to defense. In a 10-minute period in the first half, the Cowboys just exploded. I don't know what happened. Like, I was just watching that game going, we're 8-0 up. There's no way. It's over. Then for the Broncos to actually come back and do what they did and blew us apart on attack and and our defense couldn't muster up anything. Oh, that's terrible, man. It's terrible. And then that comes to my third and final points will be this. Although we did lose, I seen something in there. The Broncos played at their best to beat the Cowboys that night. We all know that the Cowboys didn't play at their best. And that's a scary proposition for any other team. I hope the boys can get it all sorted and get ready to roll for the up-and-coming game, which is the Storm. But we get better. Michael Morgan comes back, hopefully. I'll tell you this. Cowboys, scary opposition.
Yeah, fair enough. Cowboys are a strong side, and they did very well there. But you know what? Apology not accepted yet. Hoons, it'll take a couple of weeks because you did really grill the Broncos. You did really put them down. So I mean, I won't forgive you just yet, but maybe I will over time. Time heals all wounds. But on a more serious note, Broncos just played so well. I was so happy with the way they performed. First 10 minutes was a little slow. I thought they took a while to really get into gear, but as soon as they hit it, they were dominant. They were dominant for the next 45, 50 minutes of the game. And you can say the Cowboys didn't play at their best. I think I agree to a certain extent, but I don't think they were far off. I think they certainly play that late game, and that's how they win a lot of their matches, is in the second half. And that's exactly what they tried to do, but they just sort of left it too little too late. And hence, the Broncos were able to hold on to their lead for the last half of the game, which was phenomenal to watch. It was so intense. I never felt comfortable at all. At all. Even when Cody Nikorima scored the try to put him, I think it was 10 points in front, with 12 minutes, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't think that was going to be enough. But thanks to Mr. Goalpost, it was. And I think that line that Scott Bolton was running there, he was running pretty close to the post. It didn't take much of a push from Pangai Jr. to get him into the post. So, you know, maybe they can work on their running lines a little bit, because I don't think the goalpost is to blame. I think that's more Scott Bolton's running lines. But overall, phenomenal game. Phenomenal game.
Phenomenal it was. It was excellent, like I said before. Moving on. Now to the Tigers and Storm. Tigers pulled off a stunning upset in Slater's 300th game. Also notable, Kenny Bromwich's 100th game. But here's a question for you. For you, Nick, sorry. What impressed you the most about the Tigers?
Definitely their defense. Their goal line defense was just phenomenal. And I think it was a very out of character Storm side, I will say. I think it was, I can't remember if it was 16 or 18 errors, which is just unlike the Storm. You know, that you don't see that very often from them, especially in a home game. But I did see Billy more of a ball player that game, as opposed to being that really threatening runner, really threatening attacker. And I think that is because they don't have as much confidence in Brodie Croft as obviously they would have in Cooper Cronk. So Billy Slater sort of stepped up into that role a little bit, saying, "Oh, look, I'll play the ball a little more. I'll do a little more of that halves work," and that sort of takes away from his own game a little bit. And I think that really damaged the Storm's offensive game, definitely. But no, Tigers held out, and they definitely deserved the win there, definitely. Their defense was just too strong for the Storm.
I agree with you, Nick. But I agree with you for different reasons, and here's why. Is that I agree with you that the Tigers' defense was phenomenal, but I felt like their defense actually forced Melbourne into errors and mistakes. Whilst watching this game, the West Tigers versus Melbourne Storm, last week I said that they had no shot at beating Melbourne in Melbourne at Amy Park against the Premiership champions. But the way that Ivan Cleary has mustered his troops in terms of that brilliant defence, the up and in defence, moving off the line very quick, they were pressuring the Storm, which is something that now I can see that could be a blueprint on how to beat the Storm. We've seen Cameron Smith make errors. We saw Billy Slater make errors. We've seen all these guys that are champions make fundamental errors that we've never seen before due to the West Tigers defense. And not to mention, Benji Marshall has been brilliant in the last 2 weeks. Not only that, Benji's his game management has just gone through the roof. And I don't think the Tigers win without Benji in this. So with Josh Reynolds still injured and coming back, I haven't clear who would he choose, because in my eyes, Benji Marshall has sealed the number 6 jersey. I think it's going to be hard for Josh Reynolds to actually start now that he should actually come off the bench. I just been loving the way that the Tigers have been playing. The quick line defense of the Tigers, jamming in, forcing the Storm to play. I agree with you, Nick, about Brodie Croft. I feel like that he's still learning his craft. I think there was too much expectations straight away, and that he needs to still learn how to close out games. And that was his biggest problem, because they've always relied on Cooper Cronk, but he's not there anymore. And as Benji said in an interview, that Storm are not the same team without Cooper. It's a completely different team, sorry. So, man, West Tigers, up the Tigers, they're doing so well. And I can't wait for this weekend's game. It's going to be interesting.
And definitely interesting. Also, I just want to say, Benji Marshall, what a champion to rally his troops to go and do a guard of honor for Billy's 300th game as well. The NRL has just recently put up a new format for the Hall of Fame and the Immortal, where 100 for the Hall of Fame, 100 greatest players from the 2008 are automatically inducted. 6 new players will be inducted in 2018, which is this year. Players must be retired for 5 years, and a maximum of 4 players inducted every year from 2019. This also includes coaches, referees, and contributors, which is always good. And for the Immortals, this particular person must be a member of the NRL Hall of Fame. 5 players selected by a screening committee will select the next Immortal. New Immortals will be announced every 4 years, and a maximum of 2 Immortals could be named each cycle. Also, note that 6 new Hall of Famers will be announced in July. Out of all the players, who are the 2 should be inducted this year? Or maybe even just the 1? Nick?
So we're talking Immortals?
Immortals.
I'm just obviously Darren Lockyer. I don't think there's a second player around that deserves to be put on that same pedestal as Darren Lockyer. So Lockyer was he was a legend of his era, and he's still a part of the game now. He still does commentary. He still hangs around, and I just love him to be such an admirable character. You know, he's a leader. He was so clinical in the game, yet pulled off so many miracles. His defense was strong. It's hard to criticize him at all. So I would put Darren Lockyer as my next Immortal. No one else.
I agree with you, Nick. But I'm going to throw somebody else in there if they can select 2 Immortals. The first one, in my eyes, I agree with you. Watching Darren Lockyer through my lifetime, he's definitely one half of the Immortals in this year in August. Darren Lockyer had the poise. He was so controlled. You knew you were always in the game. As a Broncos supporter, I guess you would know that. But he just had that aura of a champion. He was a leader of men. And before Jonathan Thurston and Cameron Smith both switched that, the greatest player that they played with was each other. Prior to that was Darren Lockyer. They really enjoyed playing with that man. Darren Lockyer not only did he transition from the fullback role as a great fullback. He moves into 5'8" when the Broncos needed him the most, and he becomes a great 5'8". And he revolutionized that role. I think is that he's a fullback ball player, ball playing fullback. Sorry, Darren Lockyer, no question. My second one, Mal Meninga. I think Mal Meninga back in the 80s and 90s, growing up, I didn't really get to see him play that much, but the stories that I've heard of his playing days, this man is a man mountain and a leader of men. But the way that he attacked the ball, his defense, he made everyone around him better. Hence why Canberra was so successful back in the early 90s. And Mal Meninga, if we could base it on coaching, obviously, look, he's the reason why, he's one of the biggest reasons why Queensland had a dynasty for a long time. So, Mal, you got my vote. Lockie, so do you.
Now, moving on to our picks, boys. What happened last week? We did pretty poor again. But this week, we're going to make amends and get it right. So, Storm versus the Cowboys at Amy Park. Hoons, who are you picking for this one?
No ifs, no buts. But I'm tipping the mighty North Queensland Cowboys. There's no way I would ever go against that beautiful team of mine. Yes, we lost to the Broncos, and it sucks. It sucks so bad. And Nick sits there and he can't even accept my apology. I said a genuine sorry to him. Now I'm starting to try and reel back my sorry somehow. But no, I'll just leave it with him. But Nick, tip, Cowboys.
Who you choose the Cowboys, his team? On Friday, the 23rd of March, Bulldogs versus Panthers. And I'll be going for the Panthers on that one. Two wonderful comebacks. And I just see Panthers too strong for the Bulldogs. Straight after that, at Campbelltown, West Tigers versus the Broncos. Nick, who do you got?
Broncos. I have to go Broncos. As well as the Tigers have been playing the last couple of weeks, I think the Broncos have got a newfound confidence. And I think if they can carry that onto this week, I think they'll definitely take the Tigers by storm.
Broncos for Nick. Next one, Saturday, 24th of March, Raiders versus the Warriors at GIO Stadium. Hoons, who do you have?
Before the West Tigers did that beautiful win against the Storm, I was actually going to pick the Warriors as the team that I impressed. That impressed me the most. But you know what? I'm going for the Warriors because they look damn good and they deserve my pick.
Rabbitohs versus Seagulls at ANZ Stadium. Nick, who do you got?
Obviously the Seagulls. I think Adam Reynolds still out for the week. And I wasn't too impressed with the way the Rabbitohs played last week. I thought they were really, really mediocre. They were pretty lackluster. And yeah, can't really tip them at this point in time.
And straight after that game is the Eels versus Sharks. And this one, I'll be going for an upset. Parramatta Eels. I think the Eels will bounce back. They're embarrassed already. So, Eels, you better win. Sunday, 25th of March, Titans versus Dragons. Hoons, who do you have?
No doubt the Dragons. Dragons are on fire. They look good. Their forward pack's great. Their halves playing really well. Their back line also, they got veterans. So, Titans were without Ash Taylor last week against the Warriors. A huge blow for them. If he does come back, I still think that it doesn't matter. But I feel like that it might be closer than what people are going to think. But Dragons, my tip.
And the last game of the round, Mitchell Pearce versing his old team, Roosters versus Knights at Allianz Stadium. Nick, who will win this one?
Definitely the Roosters. I think Knights have just scraped through their last 2 victories. I think a lot of their points scored against the Raiders weren't Knights' brilliance. It was Raiders' mistakes. You know, they just weren't strong defensively, the Raiders. I felt anyway. I think they laid off... I think Kalen Ponga looked really dangerous on the ball, but I don't think that was him himself. I think that was the defence giving him room, giving him space to be brilliant. He's a 19, 20-year-old fullback starting the NRL. You know, Coaching 101 says you put pressure on him. You move up, you put bombs on him. You make him feel under pressure the whole game. And he'll grow from that. Not many of those young players can handle that pressure. In fact, very few will. But the Raiders just didn't put that pressure on him, and they let him work that sort of brilliance he has. I think the Roosters will be very different. I think they'll definitely shut him down. I think they'll shut down Mitchell Pearce, and I just don't see the Knights as a threat against such a strong Roosters side.
Nick, so you're talking about strong. Are you scared for that the West Tigers could beat your team? Because after their brilliant 2 wins, and we're not just talking about like 2 easy wins, one against the Roosters and one against the Storm, you really think that the Broncos can pull through and beat the Tigers?
I do. I really do. I think the way they overpowered the Cowboys kind of proves that to me, that the Broncos are a much stronger team than what people expected after round 1. And I honestly see the Broncos forward pack as stronger than the Tigers forward pack. Because I'd view the Cowboys forward pack as stronger than the Tigers forward pack. And yet Broncos overpowered the Cowboys forward pack. So obviously I'm going to put the Broncos above the Tigers forward pack. I think it will be a close game, definitely. Because last 2 games for the Tigers have been 10-8. Have they scored 1 try in each of those games, the Tigers? Or was it 2 tries in the first game?
1 try.
1 try in each game. So, I mean, I see the Broncos as a strong defensive side, so I don't see their scoreline changing. I think if Milford and Nikorima can really get going, I think they'll definitely be a threat. I think Brodie Croft wasn't enough of a threat to the Tigers' defence for the Storm, hence why Storm weren't able to be threatening enough. And I think Cooper Cronk played very well against them, so I do have to give them credit there. But I do see Nikorima and Milford, if they play well, they'll definitely threaten the Tigers' defence more.
Let's get something clear, right? So you did not, you don't really enjoy Cody Nikorima, but what did you think of his performance on Friday night? Because I thought it was damn good.
I was very impressed. Very impressed. I said at the start of the season I was very worried about how he was going to play, because I thought if he doesn't play well, team's going to crumble. And that's exactly what happened in round 1. But he certainly stepped his game up, and so did Milford in round 2 against the Cowboys there. So I have faith in him. I have faith in him until he proves me wrong now. All right. Turning the tables back to you, Hoons. You tipped the Cowboys over the Storm at Amy Park. Cowboys just lost their first away game. Now they're travelling even further away from home against an even stronger team, and you've tipped them. So can I just get your logic behind that?
I'm glad that you asked, Nick. But as I mentioned before and on our podcast just so far, is that the West Tigers has laid a blueprint on how to beat the Melbourne Storm. Now, I'm not going to say it's easy to pull off. And obviously, the Cowboys' defensive line was exposed. Now, there's no team better than the Storm at exposing defensive lines. We have Michael Morgan back and a Lachlan Coote. I'll say this. I think that we can definitely beat the Melbourne Storm. Obviously, knowing now that the Cowboys played pretty damn poor at Suncorp Stadium, I believe that if we can get up in the face of Brodie Croft, I think that he would crumble under pressure once again.
In saying that was all they needed to do against Nikorima and Milford, yet they failed to do that. So I don't see the Cowboys as a threat to such a strong Melbourne side. Realistically, I think the Cowboys' defence isn't going to hold off the way the Tigers' defence did. They were not, I don't want to say lazy, but they were tired when they played the Broncos towards the end, and they left in some soft. I think it was Cody Nikorima's strike. James Roberts has run sideways for 15 metres and then picked a gap. That should never happen in an NRL game.
Yeah, but it's a bit different when he's Jimmy the Jet, Nick. You know this. He's done it to many oppositions, even at his Titans day. He's a hard man to stop, so it's going to be really, really difficult to stop a man like that when your forwards are tired, especially in the middle third, when the game is maybe 60 minutes old. Jimmy the Jet, so fast, so quick on the mark. That's the reason why he broke through. He's just unbelievable. Like, that was unbelievable. I knew it. I was calling it when I was watching that damn game. Don't let James Roberts even run for a second, because if he runs sideways, he's going to quickly explode into a hole. Guess what? He did it. Cody in there to support him. But Melbourne, I feel like that onto the Melbourne game, they're not as big threat as what they seem, especially after the West Tigers win. Yeah, Melbourne Storm capitulated badly. I know this though, Melbourne's going to come back. Craig Bellamy's going to go down hard on them. I hope that Paul Green does the same with the Cowboys, because they both teams are looking for this win, one over the other. With Jonathan Thurston back, and I seen that the Cowboys' structure against the Broncos was completely different than previous years. Usually the go-to man is Jonathan Thurston. If you watch that game, they went away from JT for a lot of that game until near the end. So yeah, Nick, that's probably what was one of the biggest reasons why there's a new structural change. It's not based around JT anymore, and I think we can beat them.
Tell you what, my tips for the Storm, Hoons. I don't see the Storm making the same mistakes twice.
My tip is for the West Tigers, Nick, and I can't wait till they beat you.
All right, boys. Guys, we're out of time. Thank you very much for listening in to 20 Meter Restart, Agree to Disagree Rugby League podcast. Once again, I am Ra with Hoons and Nick signing off. Later.